YouTube, HeirofCarthage here, and welcome to Game 4 of the Changeling Challenge Tournament Final. This was hosted by Halo, and remember that the two contenders here are Felkon and Xiphos. Xiphos has been given Bretonia by the Wheel of Fate. Ouch. The Wheel of Fate is a cruel mistress indeed. And Felkon was given Dark Elves. Now, I actually did a little bit of commenting on the last one about some people who think this is an auto win. For me, at least, if I had gotten Bretonia versus the Dark Elves, then yes, I feel like it would be an auto win. But of course, most people playing me is an auto win anyway at tournament level. So here's the two Harpies. And then there's going to be two Dragons. One of them is Malekith, and he's got a couple of spells on him. He's got this Breath spell, I think, that comes built in, Gaze of Malice, but he's also got Soul Stealer and Word of Pain. Destroyer is a special ability. There's just 4 infantry units for the Dark Elves. It's going to be 4 Dread Spears. They have 2 Cold One Knights, 2 Cold One Chariots, which, you know, could potentially deal well with archers and other stuff, but with 4 flyers to contend with. Bretonia's infantry choice here. They have a lot of trashy infantry. That's Bretonia. That's what they do. I'm not saying that to like insult Xiphos. That's just Bretonia. So 3 units of peasant mob to soak stuff up. 2 units of men at arms. There are 3 peasant bows. 1 foot squire. The Holy Wardens of Lamontasal. We've got a Grail Guardian, 2 Grail Knights, and the Knights of the Lion-Hearted. And then there's another men at arms and peasant out here. So if you look here, Felkon's already begun his attack, and he's going to be focusing heavily on the Bretonian left flank. See how that plays out. There is also a field trebuchet with some spearmen at arms for defense. The Fey Enchantress is the leader for the Bretonians, so she is going to be trying to use her healing. The Grail Knights here just take a charge. They can't countercharge Malekith on his dragon. So Malekith is just going to give them a charge, and there's nothing they can do about it when that happens. And you can see the Cold One Knights coming in to help finish. Noxious Breath here from the Black Dragon. The Fey Enchantress trying to heal her troops, but she just gets whaled by a Black Dragon. And like I said, there's very little that the Bretonians can do about this. They're going to be forced into this engagement. The Dread Spears are now here to reinforce. Now, Dread Spears aren't wildly superior to a blob of trashy Bretonian infantry, but it's going to take them a long time to be killed because of the defense from their shields. You can see here the Grail Knights going to try and make short work of one over here and get them off the battlefield. The Peasant Bowmen are firing away, and they are doing some damage. There is a Berserk Cold One Knight. The second one berserks. But then these Cold One Chariots get around the flank, and there's not any Knights here. This one's routing, so there's no Knights to contend with this. It's just a Foot Squire, and a Foot Squire is not going to like being run over by Chariots. There's also some Spearmen at Arms back there. So the 2 Cold One Knights do rout. This one have about half of its numbers left. The Bretonians are sending in more forces, trying to throw everything they can at these dragons. They do not have armor-piercing missiles. They've lost a lot of their Knights. There are still a few Grail Knights. Grail Knights are anti-large, but they are not armor-piercing, and they can help pin a dragon down, but it is a long and difficult finish. These Knights of the Lion-Hearted kind of get bogged down in a fight here with the Dread Spear, which is probably just a mistake on the part of Xiphos, where he really needs that unit to be free and be over here to help taking down these dragons. It's either a mistake, or he may just, honestly, at this point, like if I were him, I would just not like it. I'd be frustrated having to try and take this Bretonia build against 2 dragons. It'd just be tough. It's tough. Bretonia as a whole is a tough pick against the Dark Elves. The Dark Elves are a superior faction in pretty much every way. It does make me wonder, though, what would have this potentially looked like if Bretonia had picked a goon squad with Lewin? Could it be done? I don't know, 2 dragons. Maybe if you had a couple of Royal Pegasus Knights in the bow support? I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'd be kind of curious to see what would have happened if you had a goon squad with a couple of Royal Pegasus Knights and Lewin, and then a Damsel of Life to heal them. At this point, it was a clear victory for the Dark Elves, and now it is tied at 2-2. 2 for Felkon, 2 for Xiphos. It's going to go to Game 5, people. That's pretty exciting. And of course, being the Changelings Challenge, where the Wheel of Fate is spun to pick your faction, it's going to really probably, I mean, if you end up with a match like this, it could be rough. It could be rough for whoever gets it in the last game. So, but that's part of the challenge of this tournament, is that fate may be with you, fate may be against you. In my opinion, it was very much against Xiphos in this match. Very much against him. So Tough. It's tough. Like I said, if Bretonnia for me is probably almost a 100% defeat when I pick them against the Dark Elves. It is not always the case, but it's going to be challenging. I mean, you think about Bretonnia does not have armor-piercing cavalry, except for questing knights. So they do have one, I should say, but they're very expensive. And again, dragons can lay a charge on stuff without being charged. Dragons are very strong. Bretonnia can heal, whereas the Dark Elves can't, but they don't really suffer as badly from not being able to heal because of that that murderous rage bar that builds up, the murderous prowess and stuff. When that builds up, they just unleash on you late in the game. Bretonnia is stuck with infantry that is just poorly matched against the Dark Elves across the board. Even the cheapest infantry for the Dark Elves is superior to the cheap infantry of Bretonnia, and the elite infantry of the Dark Elves takes a big fat dump all over foot squires, who I don't think you can really call elite infantry. They're just mid-tier. Bretonnia does have better cavalry, kind of as a general rule, but if you think about the trade that Dark Elf cavalry can make with the Bretonnian cavalry, it's really a pretty solid trade at only 1,000 cost. For these Cold One Knights, they're armor-piercing and anti-large. The only real downside is that they berserk. Outside of that, there's really not a lot of downside. Grail Guardians can do great against unarmored units, so not a bad pick. They can help support units that they get around. The Fey Enchantress is a great pick because she can heal, but she's very squishy. In this case, got hit by the dragon and KO'd relatively quickly. It's just a tough pick. Tough pick. So, good game to Felkon and Xiphos. It's going to go to Game 5. Hope you all are excited, and I will bring you Game 5 very soon.